The Stage Door Show, celebrating the independent artist. With your host, Dave Hondel.
They say we're never gonna grow up. Well, they might be right, cause we're alive, and tonight we're raising something cold up. We thought we would one day, but hey, we ain't, cause one day still ain't showed up.
Hi everybody, welcome to the Stage Door Show. This is Dave Hondel. Our guest tonight is the amazingly talented singer-songwriter that you've seen as a finalist on season 19 of The Voice on NBC. And he has a new album coming out September 2nd called Strong. So please welcome to the show, Ian Flanigan. Thanks for being with us, Ian.
Hey, Dave. Thanks so much for having me, man.
Absolutely. It's our pleasure to have you on. And, you know, Ian, the title Strong, your new album, it's a great title. And I have a feeling that there's a story behind that. So what's that story?
When you're years deep into writing and a year with a team deep into recording a record and you're going through lists of songs, it's almost like you can't see the forest through the trees anymore of like what to even title all those people coming together and all that time and all that music and all those stories. So for me, the song Strong kind of summed it up in many ways. One, I love the song. It's celebrating the person who's kind of made you who you are today and puts up with your BS. And two, just that's exactly what the team it took to make this happen was, so for me, that's why it's titled Strong.
And what can listeners expect from the album? I know there's a lot of great songs and a lot of great collaborations. So what can we expect from that?
Yeah, honestly, there's 3 different sets of producers, almost like 3 different chapters throughout this record. We got Todd Lombardo and Craig Alvin, who've done a lot of work with like Casey Musgraves and hundreds of other artists. And it's very awesome country sounding. The whole record is country through and through, but there's different flavors of it. 3 of the songs I did with Phil Nicolo and Obi O'Brien, who've been just amazing friends. And Obi is Bon Jovi's engineer. So he's kind of, took me into his house up in Pennsylvania, and we tracked these 3 songs, came out a little rock heavy, and I can't wait for people to hear those. And then I'm a songwriter here in Nashville, so I have a publishing deal. And one day, Ryan Rossabo and Barrett Baber and I were having a co-write, and we wrote a song called Last Name on It, and we recorded it right there in Ryan's studio that day. And that's actually the song that's out right now as my new single.
You've got it all. Sure enough, got enough to make a man fall. And baby, I feel from the first time that you pulled me in. Went from talking to kissing. There's only one thing that's missing. 'Cause you can't have a song without a melody. Can't have forever till we change one thing. 'Cause your name from the day I heard it, one word away from perfect. But girl, if I'm being honest, I wanna put my last name on it. Put my last name on
it. So it's a whole spectrum of music on there.
There's going to be a lot to be expected. That's awesome. Being on the show The Voice, one of the things I like to ask about people that have been in kind of reality type shows or shows that, for artists like yourself, I know what we see is what we see on TV, but there's a lot of backstory that goes on to those types of, those shows. And there's a lot of hard work that goes in by a lot of different people. So kind of give us a kind of behind the scenes, look to what it was day to day for you on a show like that.
On a show like that, it's a lot of moving pieces. You kind of get corralled a bit because you got to fall into your lane almost for things to work. I mean, it's all production managers and assistants. And there's 100 people around you at all times trying to make, like, between lighting, you got your sound guy outdoors and indoors and all the monitors. And so basically we just get to kind of be pushed around a little bit, but it's a really tight operation. Day to day there, you might wake up and even be doing a fitting or some camera blocking or rehearsing from like 7 a.m. And then throughout the day, it's just a series of different events. And you might get back between like 8 p.m. or 2 a.m. Wow. And it's just every day. So a lot of behind the scenes on that, it ranges. When the show starts, there's a lot of people. And towards the end, it's like, 10 people and you're just moving all day and night.
Yeah. And also being on a show like that, you were touring for several years before you even were on the show. So, you were out there, hitting it hard. But being on a show like that, I'm sure like a lot of people recognize you out there and on the streets and so forth. So what was that like going from an indie artist touring to being on a show like that and having that notoriety and actually getting recognized out there? What was that like for you?
Man, I have been an independent artist since I was 17. And I've been going hard, like all in since I was a kid. Like it's been my life work. And I honestly stopped looking for any mainstream anything. I was just trying to be the best artist I could. And I knew that takes everything. And you got to be willing to just leave it all and die for it, And I had traveled for years doing this. And when I got on The Voice, it wasn't a typical situation. I didn't actually like traditionally audition for it. I was brought on as an alternate after they'd seen some videos in a performance. And once it started happening, I had my bags packed every night. I was like, I'm going home, no worries. But as I kept going further and even get to the finale, now I'm like, I show up to shows and there's a dozen to 100 people almost everywhere that are fans of that show and also support me now. So it's like, independent artists, man, it's the hardest hustle there is. So when you get people even just slightly interested to listen and be a part of the music, it means everything. Yeah,
of course. No, that's awesome. And you also have a very soulful voice, and that's something that's unique. And, when did you discover that voice? At what point did you say, this is something I think I can do?
To be honest, I think I sounded terrible for years. I think I'm not a... how you always got like a friend or somebody who's kind of like a savant, like they just picked up an instrument and they're bored with it because they just shred or something. Yeah. I'm not that guy. I'm like a dedicated, 6 to 10 hours a day guy. So for me, I don't really think I was making the best music for the first half of my relationship with it. I think probably around 25, I started honing in. I'm a late bloomer,
Wow. There's no age limit, right?
Yeah, I'm still figuring it out.
Yeah. That's awesome. The other thing is we can't do this without support of our family and friends and people around us. And especially now that you have the notoriety and you're working with who you're working with, we got to keep our circle, I guess, to those people that really have our back. So, we have a lot of independent artists, obviously, that listen to our show, and, talk to them about how what the importance is of keeping your circle to those people, like I said, who have your back and that you can trust.
That's the most important thing you're saying. Like, first off, there's so many types of support in this world, but as far as like friends and parents or whoever you are, whatever age you're at where you're coming up into this, the biggest support that you can ever have is people putting confidence in your crazy ideas. It's not money. It's not like about having all these resources as much as it's like confirming the belief and faith in yourself to do it against all the odds. And like for my parents, when I was like, hey, Mom, I'm going to sell everything we own and live in a van with my fiance and my stepdaughter and raise a kid out on the road and figure it all out. My parents were like, that sounds awesome. Like we believe in you and support you. That's the kind of support that I think really goes a long way. And I have always done labor work in between my tours growing up and well into my 20s. And I read a quote on Instagram, like a meme. I swear, this has got to be where I start talking positively about all social media. But I saw a meme and it said, you are the sum of the 5 people you spend the most time with, which brings me back to that circle. I quit my job the next day. I put a 2 weeks notice and I didn't leave them. But, I was looking around and I was like, man, not one of these guys is touring. Yeah. Not one of these guys is writing songs on the clock. Not one of these guys spends their lunch break rehearsing. Yeah. And I just realized it's the truest thing for me at that time was like the circle you build is what's going to build you, and it's almost more important. It's almost the most important step is surrounding yourself with the people that, so many quotes, just like I stopped taking advice from people that didn't have what I wanted. Yeah. You can't talk to somebody who's not in the arts and get advice necessarily on how to be an independent artist.
Right.
So you're so right with that. I think that you got to cut out friends, you got to cut out anything toxic, and it takes everything. You know, you have to dedicate your life to it.
Yeah. You know, and talking about dedicating your life, I know you're celebrating 5 years of sobriety, and that's important for us to talk about because, you know, I've my family, you know, we've struggled in my family with this as well, and also suicide, depression, and everything. And I know that you're on the advisory board of very important Hope Rocks. So talk about that a little bit, and you know, the importance again of that support, you know, to get to where you're at with that as well.
You know, okay, so I'm 32 right now. I think I turned 18 when I moved down. I'm from upstate New York originally. Bad winters, no gigs, bad stuff. I moved down to Orlando to just be a musician. And I remember starting out in dive bars playing for just booze. And I was just drinking for free as a teenager. And the guys I was coming up with were all pretty heavy drinkers. And the mindset, this was like MySpace only. It wasn't even like a social media world. And I remember the mindset was play your ass off in every town, city in that state for about a year, and then move and just repeat that forever. And by the time I was 25, being paid in liquor and all other substances for years, I really didn't have a grounded version of life or how to live anymore. And I was a total wreck, and I didn't even really know it until a series of unfortunate events. And I won't get into them now. We can have another talk about those, but you know, that lifestyle and just keeping my bar this low, finding, you know, depression in the lack of success from being in the wrong places with the wrong people, and not getting it. Because when you don't know, you don't know. You know, looking back, you're always like, oh, why would I ever do that? But when you're a kid, you have no idea, and you look up to certain people.
Right.
So I got myself really caught in just deep with alcohol and other drugs, and it was my entire life. It was that and music, and came to a point where I wasn't even being able to be booked anymore. I was just not really handling myself very professionally, and it just hit me. I checked myself into a rehab after I had a car accident and just a bunch of just downhill spirals. Checked myself into a rehab, got clean for about 113 days, I think it was. I moved down to Georgia, disappear and write a record because my buddies were millwrights down there, and rent was like $150, and I just relapsed again and went even worse. And, you know, for me, it's always been tied to depression. And, you know, as an independent artist and a songwriter or an actor or a painter or whatever you are, it is you. Like, you can't just live a lie. Like, you have to do it, even if it means you're going to starve out there. It's like what you do, it's your purpose. So me trading that passion and then never having any kind of success kind of brought this painful mediocrity that I was stuck in. And I think that's where I just mix alcoholism on top of it, and depression just can lead you to the worst days of your life. And I have so much love for everybody going through it, because this year has been the first break in my life financially where I wasn't literally living like dollar to dollar this whole time I've been around. And so Hope Rock started in my hometown of Saugerties, New York, probably maybe almost 10 years ago. I was playing it back before it had a really great initiative. But now the initiative of Hope Rocks is to destigmatize mental illness, addiction, isolation, depression, all these things that we need to talk about more and just become, and we are as a culture, I see it.
Yeah.
I've been on the advisory board, plenty of amazing talent, really wonderful, kind-hearted people. But it's such a hard initiative to spread because it's like, you know, look at our mainstream culture. We celebrate as many good things as we do the wrong things. So it's a good thing to be a part of, but just about spreading awareness.
I think with men, it's a little harder to, to get that message out there because of I don't know, masculinity or whatever it is, because they want to make sure that they want people to think that they're okay all the time. They can fix things, but it's okay to be vulnerable. It's okay that men have depression. I speak about it myself a lot, and like I said, my journey with my father, committing suicide, and so depression. I think every family suffers with something, some kind of mental illness, I think, in some respect, but the more we talk about it, the better it's going to get. And I think the less the stigma is going to be around it. So kudos to you for the work that you do in that.
Well, thank you, man. I'm so sorry to hear about your father. I've had other friends who have gone through similar situations, and I know it's just the worst thing in the world.
Yeah, I appreciate that. And the other thing I want to get into, another note here is working with Blake Shelton, because I know being on the show, you were in Team Blake, and, working with somebody like Blake Shelton, what was that journey like? Because I know you still collaborate with him, and, how was that journey through with him? He's awesome, isn't he?
You got to understand, I do a lot of interviews and all this stuff, but Blake single-handedly kind of saved my ass in life. I give him a lot of credit because I was living in a van. All my shows were gone. This guy turned his chair for me. If he didn't, I'd be back in the bars, probably out in Texas, just hustling it. And, he turned for me and kept me around 3 times. And the guy is just as genuine as you see on TV or whatever. He's got a lot of good insight, because it's not necessarily musical insight that I got from him the most, that I respected the most, but just his demeanor and his love for people and his love for the listeners and people having a good time. He was very adamant about me embracing my authenticity and originality when I was kind of shouldn't I be singing higher, try to compete or something? And he was just no, dude, nobody is expecting that from you. So He was an amazing guy to me on that show, and did open my eyes to a lot of things, especially to stage presence and all this great stuff that you can only learn from being in person. And after the show, I got signed to a single. And that single I sent over to Blake just to be hey, man, what do you think of this? And he hit me back with a text somewhere on my phone here, just hey, man, I love this song. What do you think if I jumped on it? And was kind enough to just be come to he did a feature on my song just because he's an amazing guy. Yeah. And we got to meet in Nashville at Starstruck Studios. Yeah. And one afternoon he just came in, he just crushed it. Obviously it's not it takes a long time for him to track. Right. He comes and sings it, but we hung out for a bit and caught up. And he's got to be the busiest guy in the world. And I'm sure he would do it more often for people if his schedule allowed for it. But I just feel so grateful to have met the guy.
Grow Up, is that song you're talking about?
Yeah, Grow Up. He came in, and then we actually performed it on the next season's finale together.
Hand-stamped handshakes, love drunk tipsy, map, coke, and a whiskey. Kiss me, strap off her shoulder, feel that fire. Embers in her eyes, gonna burn me higher. They say we're never gonna grow up. Well, they might be right, 'cause we're alive, and tonight we're raising something colder. We thought we would one day, but hey, we ain't, 'cause one day still ain't showed up. I guess we're never gonna grow up. Falling too fast, hang on too long, screw what we need, do what we want, leave our mark like black on leather. Don't they know we'll live forever? We're never gonna grow up. Well, they might be right, 'cause we're alive, and tonight we're raising something colder. We thought we would one day, but hey, we ain't, 'cause one day still ain't.
That video, by the way, it's amazing. I love the video. Watch it again today. For those of you listeners, go out and get on YouTube and watch Grow Up. It's one of the best videos you'll see. Just love that video, man.
Thank you so much, man. I just want to say that the director is actually from my hometown, only a couple roads away, that we grew up together, Vincent Pioni. So we got together, and then he's he's like a huge director out in California now. So I was like, hey, man. And we ended up getting, my management is good friends with Eric Roberts. So Eric Roberts is starring in it.
Yeah, I saw that.
Like, it was one of these things, man, where I'm like, what is happening?
Yeah, what a whirlwind, right? So what kind of story, do you have a crazy story behind the scenes at The Voice? Is there something that happened that, what's that one big memory?
Nothing that I can actually talk about.
That's always the
But
way.
know that there are, but I can't speak of those, but I will say this. The majority of our time, we were the COVID season. We never went home. We lived in Burbank, California, but man, we were quarantined like hard. That was the time where they were like triple masked. They had like a plastic suit on.
Yeah. Hazmat. Yeah.
Oh, dude, it was, we didn't get to do much. Like usually, like right now, whoever's filming out there is probably able to go out to town and hang out or whatever.
Right.
We were not. So my craziest story, let me think. Oh, honestly, I used to just hang out and bullshit with Jim Ranger. That was like my buddy towards the end. We would just hang out, man. Nothing crazy. We were just like the old dudes.
the old ones of the group. Yeah.
Yep.
So, before we go, Ian, I always ask this of all my artists that I have in the show, but what do you want your legacy to be? What do you want people to think of when it's all said and done? What do you want your legacy to be?
Man, I started being an artist. That's a really deep question, by the way. I started being an artist because I remember the way music hit me, where it was so intense for me. Music always is. I can't do anything if music is playing. It hits me. And I remember that feeling was like medicine. And I did not even care who the person was. Like, it really wasn't like attached to why it was doing it. It just was like that thing. I just want to create that. If it lives on and my name fades away from it, it's not really the point for me as far as that legacy goes, as far as my identity. But like, I really want to leave something beautiful behind that people feel better for. That's it. Like, I think that's all it ever was. So I don't want to overcomplicate it with like a deep thing. I think for me, it's just, I want to make medicine in a different kind of way. That's it.
That's awesome. Yeah, that's a great legacy. Ian, I can't thank you enough for being on the show. It's a real honor for us to have you on. And, we can't wait for the second here. I know Strong's going to be out in the second here in September. So everybody listening, make sure that you go onto all streaming platforms and get that album. And the other thing is, you're always welcome on the show, Ian, anytime you want to come back. So it's just, again, real pleasure to have you on.
Dave, thank you so much, man. I appreciate your time, bro.
High heels on and you're hearing this. Backyard dancing in the light of the moon. That summer heat had nothing on you. That summer heat had nothing on